issue. And the fundamental issue is that ECOWAS is protecting its protocols. Ironically, when ECOWAS deployed the standby force to the Gambia to make sure that a president who had lost elections vacated the presidency, nobody made noise. Today, they are saying, why are you intervening in Niger? So serious interests are at stake here. But that is not going to divert ECOWAS attention. We just want to tell them that and inform them about the resolve of the ECOWAS heads of state and government to make sure that by all means available, constitutional order will be restored in the country. And this meeting today bears testimony to that. And people are telling us, where are we going to get the resources? So ECOWAS is being teleguided by the West, it is being teleguided by France, it is being teleguided by anybody. But what they forget is that ECOWAS is a rules-based organization. We have our protocols, we have our norms, and we are ready to protect them. That's why the heads of state are saying, if push comes to shove, we are going into Niger with our own contingent owned equipment. We are going with our own resources and to make sure that we restore constitutional order. The planning mission, which started on the 2nd of August, has come to an end today. We've already agreed and fine-tuned what will be required for the intervention. The strategic lift capacity, what the strategic objectives are, equipment needed, commitment of member states, which was very, very, very encouraging. All member states of ECOWAS present here today have all committed elements. They have committed their own equipment. They have committed their own resources to undertake this mission. I tell you, we are ready to go anytime the order is given. The D-Day is also decided, which we are not going to disclose. There will be no more meetings of the chiefs of defense staff. If there will be, it will be probably in the course of the operation if there is the need to adjust the operation. This is the second extraordinary meeting and the final meeting before deployment. That is what we want to inform you about, and that as soon as our heads of state and government are satisfied with the report that has been presented, our troops across the region are ready, and they are ready to call, respond to the call of duty of the region. We are not against the Republic of Niger. We have said, just as the chief of the committee, the chair of the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff has just said, that all the options are on the table. And as we speak, we are still readying mediation mission into the country. So we've not shut any door. We've not shut any door at all. The sanctions are also on the table. And if they respond favorably, to the request by the Authority of Heads of State for dialogue, we are ready to accept. All we are saying is that we are not going to engage in endless dialogue. It must be fruitful, and its objective must be the restoration of constitutional.
Well, so ECOWAS says that, look, they are not going to engage in endless dialogue. And the calls for diplomacy has been such that when, according to them, they make the approach, they have the door being continuously slammed in their faces. That's the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, you just heard. This was a press conference that was addressed by him after that two-day crucial meeting of the ECOWAS security chiefs here in Accra. A number of things came up. The United Nations has waded into this. They have some serious concerns. We'll get into that this morning. It's one of the key issues that we're going to be spending some time on together with you and our guest here on Key Point on TV3, also live on 3FM 92.7. Has Ghana taken a decision and a position on what to do in this ongoing situation in Niger? Stay with me. We would get into that this morning. And then also the Ghanaian community in Niger already raising concerns about how this situation is taking a toll on them already. We'll get into that this morning here on Key Point. Also, the scores of Ghanaians who are raised concerns about the 10% tax on betting and lottery earnings. And we would get into all of that as well to understand what the concerns are and whether indeed government is going to take that as well into consideration. Remember, this tax took effect on August 15th. And so we would get into all of that and some reactions as well and take into consideration the concerns of those who have also opposed this new 10% tax on betting earnings. Plus, the minority in Parliament is demanding answers on the changes in the cost of the Bank of Ghana new headquarters. They quote that the first figure was somewhere around $60 million and then went up to about a little over $80 million. Now we're talking about $250 million in excess. If what they're saying is indeed anything to go by, raises fundamental concerns that they want the Bank of Ghana to answer to. This morning, we would find out exactly the detail that they want from the Bank of Ghana. This is Key Point. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. My guest will join me after this quick break, Colonel Festus Aboagye. He's a security analyst with international repute. He's going to be joining us. Also, Professor Ransford Jampo. He's a professor of political science at the University of Ghana, Legon. And James Agaga, the Honorable James Agaga, is a member of parliament for the Busa North constituency. He's the ranking member of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament. Will be joining us. Martin Pebo is a private legal practitioner. And Fatima Abubakar is Deputy Information Minister. They're all joining us right after this quick break here on Key Point. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. I am Alfred Okansi. Welcome.
Charlie, Malcolm never they stop the blow on a mind, so Malcolm says shop Fala at any Malcolm shop near you. Enjoy a whopping 20% off this weekend from Friday 18th to Sunday 20th August 2023. It's the Malcolm Fala promo. Terms and conditions apply. Malcolm, where Ghana shops.
Life can get hectic, and sometimes we forget to prioritize our well-being. That's where Vernal Mineral Water steps in. A refreshing solution packed with essential minerals, Vernal Mineral Water keeps you hydrated and balanced. Whether you're at home or work, Vernal Mineral Water is there to keep you going. Don't let a busy schedule hinder your health. Make Vernal Mineral Water a part of your daily routine. Share the love with Vernal Mineral Water, the choice for a healthy, vibrant you.
This advert is FDA approved. Let's discover South Africa with 3FM 92.7 and South African Airways from the 21st to the 28th of October 2023. Let's travel to discover the beautiful sights and sounds of Joburg, tour the most enchanting wineries of Cape Town, and attend the biggest wine event in Africa, Wine X, amongst many other incredible experiences. Be a part of this exclusive getaway from the 21st to the 28th of October. Tour package includes visa facilitations, return flights to Accra, round-trip flights to Cape Town and Joburg, hotel accommodation, breakfast and lunch, exclusive tours of the winelands and wine tasting in the Western Cape Province, city tours of Cape Town and Joburg, exclusive access to the Grand Wine X event at Sandton Convention Center, guided shopping tours and tourist sites, and B2B networking breakfast sessions. Book your place for the trip of a lifetime. Single occupancy is $2,699 US. Double occupancy is $2,399 US. Special rates are available for couples. Please call 0531 100 927 to be a part of the 3FM Getaway. 3FM Getaway is powered by 3FM 92.7 and in partnership with SAA and supported by TV3.
Oh no.
Mommy, hurry up.
We are out of cereal and there's no time to make something else.
Good morning, honey. What's the panic?
We are running late and I don't have anything for Kojo's breakfast.
Fear not. I've got just the right thing for you.
McBerry breakfast cereal biscuits. I've heard great things about it.
Biscuit for breakfast?
Yes.
McBerry breakfast cereal biscuits are made with goodness of cereals and milk for a good start to your day.
Wow, Mom, this is delicious. Oh, Mom, can we have this every day?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Why not?
You know.
So let's hurry.
Start your day with a smile and McBerry breakfast cereal biscuits.
Goodness for your mornings. This advert is FDA approved.
This week on the second season of Kitchen it's the 10 of Group D.
We are the chef on chef. We are winning.
Expect nothing but the best from us.
Kojo shine forevermore.
Whose aroma will do the magic trick for Group D?
Okay, I want a free outfit for space.
So that you can accommodate.
And when you see my size, I don't eat, I feed.
5 attempts. 1, 2. Whose aroma will do the magic trick for Group D? Find out right here on season 2 of Kitchen Wars with me, Cookie, TV3, Sunday, 5 p.m.
Kitchen Wars Season 2 shows Sundays at 5 p.m. on TV3. Don't miss it.
Sponsored by Gino Tomato Mix.
And Napa Foods. Say Napa. Enye ono soko.
PGL.
We say no to military intervention. That is the issue. And the fundamental issue is that ECOWAS is protecting its protocols. Ironically, when ECOWAS deployed the standby force to the Gambia to make sure that a president who had lost elections vacated the presidency, nobody made noise. Today, they are saying, why are you intervening in Niger? You know, so serious interests are at stake here. But that is not going to divert ECOWAS' attention. We just want to tell them that and inform them about the resolve of the ECOWAS of state and government to make sure that by all means available, constitutional order will be restored in the country. And this meeting today bears testimony to that. And people are telling us, where are we going to get the resources? So ECOWAS is being teleguided by the West, it is being teleguided by France, it is being teleguided by anybody. But what they forget is that ECOWAS is a rules-based organization. We have our protocols, we have our norms, and we are ready to protect them. That's why the heads of state are saying, if push comes to shove, we are going into Niger with our own contingent-owned equipment. We are going with our own resources and to make sure that we restore constitutional order.
You will put in place a plan to ensure that the standby force is activated and that democracy will be restored in Niger. If presidential guards in Guinea and Niger, I'll use the word, take hostage their president, nobody, and let me repeat, nobody in West Africa is safe. That is why I urge you to continue to be loyal to your heads of states. I urge you to continue to be loyal to ECOWAS directives and to give effect that the days that coup d'etats enjoy the support of our people are over. Yes, in democracy, people will agree to disagree. But the vast majority of our people in West Africa are with you. The vast majority of our people in West Africa do not want to be under the difficulties that we are facing today.
We have obligation as ECOWAS members, and you cannot run away from it. Yesterday, I posed the question and answered it myself. Why is it that Burkina, Guinea, and Mali, we didn't go there, and now we are going to Niger? Okay. Again, I gave a solution to it that this should serve as a deterrent because it's becoming rampant. Coup d'etat is becoming rampant in ECOWAS. So we should use Niger to serve as a deterrent that anybody who tries again, ECOWAS will come after him. Okay. And this is not the first time. All right. We've done that in Liberia, Sierra Leone. We've done that in Gambia when Yahya Jammeh said he was not going to hand over power and all those things. Whether we like it or not, it's going to affect MPP. When Victoria Hammer mentioned that if she makes
to military intervention. That is the issue. And the fundamental issue is that ECOWAS is protecting its protocols. Ironically, when ECOWAS deployed the standby force to the Gambia to make sure that a president who had lost elections vacated the presidency, nobody made noise. Today, they are saying, why are you intervening in Niger? You know, so serious interests are at stake here. But that is not going to divert ECOWAS' attention. We just want to tell them that and inform them about the resolve of the ECOWAS of state and government to make sure that by all means available, constitutional order will be restored in the country.
Welcome back. Quick break here on Key Point on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7. You've heard all the voices of relevance in this particular Niger situation. I'm talking about the leadership of ECOWAS. The man you just heard is ECOWAS's Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, talking about other instances where ECOWAS stepped in and nobody raised any issues. Can that be compared to what's happening in Niger? Are the dynamics the same? And Kenneth Japon, who is the chair of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, is talking about Ghana's obligations to ECOWAS. Is that the case, that we are totally and ultimately bound by these obligations, that we cannot take a decision as a sovereign state, taking into consideration all other factors? We would get into that. If you just joined us, welcome. My guest in studio is James Agalga, who is a member of parliament for the Bosa North constituency. But for this conversation, he is the ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, committee whose chairman is Kenneth Japon, whom you just heard. Honorable James Agalga, good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
Also, Martin Pebo is private legal practitioner. He is the convener of the Komipreko Reloaded demonstration. He tells me that in the coming month something is coming up. And then also a leader of one of three individual bondholder groups, lawyer Martin Pebo. Good morning, welcome.
Morning, Mr. Kansi.
Great. Also joining us is Professor Ransford Jampo. He is the newly elected University of Ghana, University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG president. Professor Ransford Jampo, good morning and congratulations to you.
Good morning and thank you.
It's been a while, been here. Let me welcome those joining us on Zoom. Colonel Festus Aboagye, retired, is a security analyst with international repute, with his work in Sudan and many other conflict zones, comes with rich resource for this conversation this morning. Colonel Festus Aboagye, good morning, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Also, Fatima Abubakar is Deputy Information Minister. She's also joining us on Zoom. Fatima, good morning.
Good morning, Alfred.
Great.
And to our distinguished panelists.
Wonderful. So, let me start off with you, John James Agalga. Your chairman says that, look, we have obligations to ECOWAS. And so we have to be mindful of that as well. I know that this week, your committee and the Ministry of Defense and Interior, the Ministers of National Security, you've been meeting. What has been the issues that we've been discussing, taking into consideration before Ghana's decision on this Niger matter?
Well, thank you, Mr. Okansi. First of all, let me indicate that the meeting, the Joint Committees of Foreign Affairs and Defense and Interior, the security ministers, the three security ministers, the Defense Minister, the National Security Minister, and the Interior Minister was convened and under certain protocols that the committees would usually adapt. And so once the ministers appear and give indication that the discussions are supposed to be confidential, usually we are bound not to make disclosures. But I can tell you for a fact that the discussions centered on the unfolding situation in Niger and the response of ECOWAS. Now, as you would recall, ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government took a decision from the beginning when the junta in Niger overthrew President Bazoum. And the decision of ECOWAS was that they would use military force to restore democracy in Niger. Now, when those threats were issued, many thought that, look, ECOWAS had made a mistake because in the first instance, ECOWAS ought to have used diplomacy to try to resolve the crisis rather than threatening to use force in Niger. And those who held those views, and I am one of the people who held the view that ECOWAS should have exhausted diplomacy before moving a step further to declare that they would use military force to restore the President Bazoum's regime in Niger. Now, having said that, the question is whether Ghana is obliged under ECOWAS protocols and can deploy troops without recourse to Parliament. I think that is the issue which has engaged our attention, and it was one. I would make that particular disclosure because it's not inimical to the protocols we set for ourselves, because I have been speaking to that issue all along, that whether or not we are bound by ECOWAS protocols to apply force under a 1999 protocol, which is supposed to be a revised protocol or not, Ghana is a sovereign state. And we have certain obligations under Article 75 of the Constitution, which requires that whatever decisions are taken at the level of ECOWAS, if there are treaty obligations arising from whatever we ratify at the level of the executive, then there ought to be a second level of ratification at the level of Parliament. Now, I've been searching to see whether some of the protocols that have been revised have been ratified either by legislation or resolution in Parliament, and I am not able to identify when Parliament actually took steps to, as it were, domesticate those obligations in a manner that would make those obligations fully binding on us as a state. So we're talking about the 1999 revised protocol, which establishes some collective security mechanism for ECOWAS, which allows them to apply force when there are massive violations of rights, when governments are overthrown by force. I'm talking about coup d'etats.
Yes.
And when the rule of law in general is compromised. You see, those protocols, I am not very certain, have been domesticated.
So without the evidence of...
Mr. Okansi, that is one level of argument.
Okay.
For me, what is fundamental is that...
I just wanted to stay on that particular bit of, if there is no evidence of a ratification of these ECOWAS protocols by our Parliament, what are the implications? What does that mean? Because you say you haven't even found any...
Yes, I haven't. I've been conducting some research, and I haven't found anything to suggest that Ghana took those steps. Be that as it may, and you be mindful. The Gitmo decision was very clear. All right, when Ghana, took certain steps, we went into some agreements with the United States to host former terrorists in our country. Some people went to court, and the Supreme Court was very clear that whatever the executive did was subject to parliamentary ratification, and that next time, when we commit ourselves on the international plane, we must take steps to have whatever decisions we took over there ratified by Parliament. And having said that, look, I heard Abdul Fattah make certain comments after yesterday's meeting that the standby force was going to be funded by ECOWAS. However, there was a caveat. They were willing to accept support from friends, friendly nations, etc. Now, Mr. Okansi, what does that tell you? It means the funding is something that goes with war, declaration of war. You cannot deploy troops when you haven't budgeted for the expenditure that would arise from such interventions. Now, as we sit here, you know why it is compelling that the President Akufo-Addo's government must come to Parliament, table the decisions taken at the level of ECOWAS for parliamentary approvals? No. We don't have any appropriation for any war in Niger. And so if Ghana has to commit troops, how do we fund the troops?
From which sources? Because we haven't done any appropriation for any war effort in Niger. Do you now understand why it is compelling that they must come before Parliament?
But what will be your response if they say they are going to use the contingency vote?
They would use the contingency vote.
The one they use for the national cathedral. I'm just asking.
But we have made the point that the funding, we were misled into thinking that the national cathedral was going to be constructed from donations.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a hint that they were going to rely on contingency. So our arguments have been that the appropriations that were done for the cathedral project are illegal and should be treated as such. So please, you may not find a clear-cut provision in the Constitution which requires that if the president has to declare war, he must come before Parliament for approval. There is no such provision in the Constitution.
It's not in the spirit.
But the spirit requires that, look, before you commit Ghanaian lives, people's husbands, people's relatives to war, where they could die, you need the people's consent to act in such a manner. And how do you gauge whether the people are interested in a war effort or not, other than going through their representatives, where the people speak through people they have elected to represent them in the National Assembly? So you see, I think we must be forthright and do the right thing. In Nigeria, the Congress actually debated the decision of ECOWAS to go to war and admonished their president not to. Governors of the northern states came out, issued a communique. They should not move. Northern senators, even aside the resolution the Congress passed, also came out and stated categorically that they are opposed to any application of force in Niger. And you see, most fundamentally, questions have been raised whether ECOWAS collective mechanism can entitle them to apply force without recourse to the UN Security Council. I'm a student of international law. I've gone through the ECOWAS example is novel. In fact, it is the first time a regional body like ECOWAS has assumed or arrogated unto itself the power to apply force without recourse to the UN Security Council. So it is not a straightforward matter. You can give us examples. The ECOWAS has intervened in Liberia before and etc. In most of the cases, after the act, the UN Security Council was called upon to ratify whatever they did. So we must be careful here, and if time will permit, we would even point out that, you see, when you have an international convention which is selectively applied, as in the case of the ECOWAS protocol, that they are seeking to selectively apply here, well, that is not binding law. You apply a law in a discriminatory manner. So when there are abuses, massive violation of rights in member states, ECOWAS doesn't act. When Burkina Faso is virtually overrun by terrorists, terrorists abuse rights. In Burkina Faso, the territorial integrity of the country has been compromised. ECOWAS didn't find it necessary to apply force in aid of the Burkinabe regime to assert its rights over its own territory. But when a government which has been involved in, entangled in neo-colonialist enterprises, etc., in the country is booted out, immediately ECOWAS invokes its collective mechanism and the 1999 protocol. That is questionable. I am not by any stretch supporting coups, not at all. I am saying that, look, sanctions are enough.
Okay.
Already the UN itself has written and has faulted ECOWAS for creating humanitarian problems because of the nature of the sanctions they have imposed against Niger. I'm sure we will discuss that.
We will get into that. James Agaga, thank you. Very cogent issues you raised in your preliminary comments on this matter. Rightly so, because as a ranking member on the Defense and Interior Committee, these meetings you've been having this week points to something in the interest of government. and the way forward, or what Ghana's position or decision will be in this Niger situation. And Fatima Abubakar is Deputy Information Minister. Now, after taking all of this into consideration, the issues at play, Fatima, in this Niger situation and how things are playing out, what is the government of Ghana's official position? That is, if you have taken any official position or decision on what to do in the Niger situation through ECOWAS.
Okay, Alfred, once again, let me say good morning to you, your distinguished panelists, and also your cherished viewers, and also use the opportunity to congratulate Prof. Jampo on his selection or election as president of UTAG.
Thank you.
That being said, Alfred, let me start by saying that since the beginning of, or since the establishment of ECOWAS in 1975, not once has Ghana as a country reneged on its obligations. Whether it was based on diplomatic reasons or whether there was a need for any diplomatic or non-diplomatic contributions, Ghana has not reneged on its obligations. Secondly, Honorable James Agaga was referring to the judgment in the Gitmo 2 case. And I want to remind him that post-Gitmo 2, Ghana, being members of ECOWAS, participated in the 50th Ordinary Session of the Authority of Heads of State and Government on 17 December 2016 in Abuja, where they made similar commitments that they were going to use any means necessary to ensure that there is that democracy is protected in Gambia, a decision that the former President Mahama was part of, a decision that came at a time that the Honorable Member of Parliament was the Deputy Minister of Interior, so I know he was familiar with the Security Committee in Parliament. Maybe he may have an explanation as to whether there was parliamentary ratification in that instance before Ghana made commitments in that regard under the leadership of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. That being said, let me remind you.
So Fatima, as you're asking that question, since he's in the studio, I want an instant answer so that was there parliamentary approval in that instance?
Mr. Okansi, the deployment to Gambia was done in 2017, and the Minister of Defense, right, actually did not come to Parliament. We made several calls, gave strong indication that it was unconstitutional for Ghana to deploy in the Gambia without recourse to Parliament. Subsequently, the minister came to Parliament and presented a statement. And in the ensuing debate, we made it very clear and even cautioned him that he should never, ever commit our troops to an international engagement such as the Gambia effort without recourse to Parliament. The answer is very clear.
Right. Okay, that's on record. Thank you. Fatima, that's your answer.
Yes, Alfred, let me remind you that at the time of the communique, when the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of States and Government took the decision to use any means necessary, it was under former President Mahama. Because it was also at the time where we were in transition, of course, the succeeding government was obliged to act upon it. I am not saying this in any negative way, but to reiterate the fact that successive governments, from Liberia all the way to Guinea-Bissau, where there has been the need under the ECOWAS protocol, which provides that in extraordinary circumstances, including on humanitarian grounds, and also where there is a removal of a government by undemocratic means, which is against the constitution of the respective country, ECOWAS can intervene. That being said, let me also remind you that ECOWAS has taken a position the position that they have taken in this case, as they took in the case of Gambia, is that first they will use democracy and they will use military intervention as a last resort. When we talk about military intervention as a last resort, it means even while they are mobilizing and having a standby security force to intervene, they are still making good use of diplomatic channels and making sure it succeeds. As in the case of Gambia, if we wake up tomorrow and the presidential guards in Niger says we have changed our mind, we are releasing President Bazoum, and therefore we are restoring democracy, there would be no need for ECOWAS joint military force or security force to intervene in any way. And I believe there are some other options that may be considered by the ECOWAS Commission, which may be for security reasons, will not be appropriate to be communicated to the public at this moment. Okay. That being said, when the joint ECOWAS heads of security from ECOWAS country met yesterday, whatever I have said is what they mentioned. I'm only rehashing their points. But they had the overwhelming support and presence of 9 member states. Apart from those who are sanctioned, the only countries that were not able to participate were just Cape Verde and Guinea-Bissau, who had reasonable excuse not to participate. And there is also the issue being raised about funding. Honorable Agalga raised funding issues. Yes. That Ghana doesn't have money. He mentioned Cathedral.
So he made a specific reference that no appropriation has been made for Ghana to engage in civil war or peacekeeping or whatsoever in this particular 2023 budget. So assuming that you take that decision to commit troops to the ECOWAS standby force, where is the money coming from to fund these troops going?
Alfred, as a student of international law, I know for a fact that when it comes to even financial or military commitment to the regional body, it has to be based on one principle: capacity to pay. We know that all the countries and the ECOWAS do not have similar capacities or similar prevailing economic conditions. So, of course, in the case of Ghana, our contribution will be based on the capacity of the government of Ghana upon serious deliberations to see what we can afford. No country or anybody can give what they don't have. That is why you also mentioned that at the meeting yesterday, they mentioned that they are also requesting friendly or like-minded multinationals or countries to come and support with respect to funding, because ECOWAS is aware of such constraints, that every country will give what they are able to give. That being said, Alfred...
so are you saying, let me stay on that, are you saying that Ghana is going to commit resources, or we are going to contribute to the ECOWAS standby force financially if it so decides to intervene military-wise in the Niger situation?
I am saying that when we get there, Ghana will cross the bridge based on Ghana's capacity.
No, in crossing the bridge,
not even,
it's talking about capacity. We don't have money.
When we get there and Ghana is able to contribute only 1 cedi, that is what ECOWAS will take. And that is usually the convention.
But are you going to take into consideration our current economic situation? We don't have money.
Of course. I've already mentioned that. Of course, I've already mentioned that. That capacities of various countries are not the same. The capacity of Ghana and the capacity of Nigeria are not the same. The capacity of Ghana and maybe Benin or Togo are not the same. But all of them will contribute when the need arises. But let us not jump into conclusion that diplomacy will not work. It may work eventually. Okay. But I am saying that let's look at even some of the recent happenings within the sub-region. In Guinea-Bissau, Ghana has troops. When there was attempted coup about some 3 years ago, 2019-2020, in Guinea-Bissau, Ghana committed troops. They are still in Guinea-Bissau. Ghana committed troops to Gambia. Ghana committed troops in the past to Liberia, among others. And this, I don't know whether this is the first time we are raising, do we have money, do we have money? I believe there's been times that we've made similar commitments, whether we were under an IMF program or there were other challenges that were facing the Ghanaian economy. But Ghana cannot give what Ghana doesn't have.
Okay, but
And
I wanted,
also-
the question was whether Ghana had taken a decision on this Niger matter. So has there been a decision taken or a consideration on what to do?
Alfred, Ghana's position is ECOWAS position. It's even a non-starter. Ghana is a member of ECOWAS. Ghana has never reneged on its obligation. If ECOWAS is using dialogue and military as a last resort, Ghana will encourage and participate in dialogue at all levels and make sure we are able to restore democracy in Niger. If ECOWAS eventually decides that this is the tangent that they are going, because I have mentioned to you that there's been times that ECOWAS had mobilized standby military forces but didn't even use it. So let us not jump the gun. It may even happen that we wake up tomorrow and ECOWAS will say we are no longer using military because the Presidential Guard in Niger have agreed that they are going to restore democracy. And Alfred, finally, let me remind you that there are some individuals and some people who have used platforms to glamorize coup d'etats and have mentioned that, oh, and France, so French West Africa is supposed to do this to liberate themselves. ECOWAS' position is not influenced by France. ECOWAS has autonomy. That being said, Ghana is surrounded by 3 French-speaking countries. So if anybody sits on any platform to advocate that those French-speaking countries have every right to participate or have coup d'etats, they should remember that all the refugees and illegal immigrants, let me put it that way for want of a better word, all the people who are infiltrating our borders, they will not only come from Burkina Faso, as you have seen recent DW documentary show. They will start coming from all the other French-speaking countries in West Africa to Ghana. And the cost, I don't think anybody wants to look at that cost. And the cost to Ghana in terms of finances, in terms of infiltration of terrorists who will come with all sorts of security threats, because you and I are aware that when we look at our borders across West Africa, they are not like borders properly so-called. Yes, there are some borders that are recognized, but there are also a lot of illegal routes that people can use to access Ghana. And whether they are people who have best intentions or people who are moving weapons and bringing terrorists into our country, nobody can stop that. That threat is actually real. So it is important that when there are necessary steps being taken to contain certain situations outside Ghana's border, we actively participate and make sure they nip such security considerations in the bud. And also finally, that you know that even as we look at the security situation in Niger, likewise other West African countries, the governments, even including those who are under military regime, do not have total control of the landmass of their countries. I am very familiar with Niger. I have been to Niger as recent as December 2022. And I can tell you for a fact that if you move out of Niamey, which is the capital city, you cannot even drive up to 50 kilometers outside the capital and still be under the control of the government. You cannot move from the first city, which is Niamey, to the second economic city of Niger, which is Agadez, by road, because the governments in these respective countries, including in Mali where they have military rule, including Burkina Faso where they have military rule. So at the end of the day, if we glamorize coup d'etat and create the impression that oh, these military leaders have alliances with other mercenaries like the Wagner Group, among others, so we should be afraid. Don't allow your country to go and look for trouble. Let us mind our business.
Well,
eventually, all the terrorists and all the bad people will get to our borders.
Fatima, in fact, on this platform, as has been specifically stated, nobody has clamored that. But then again, you see, the Ghanaian community there is also concerned about how Ghana's position could impact them. I've spoken to the leadership of the Ghanaian community there. They say that if Ghana takes a decision to contribute troops or to support ECOWAS's position, if it so decides to intervene with the military in the Niger situation, they will be targeted and attacked. That's one of the fears there. Are you, as a government, taking that into consideration as well?
Definitely, Alfred. It does not matter where a Ghanaian finds him or herself. When the need arises for the country to make provision to take care of its citizens, including bringing them to safety or taking them out of harm's way, I believe government will take the necessary steps to make sure Ghanaians are safe. But I'm saying we have not even gotten to that point. And let us pray that it wouldn't even come to that. But I'm trusting that all the heads of security from the respective countries will not just take a decision in haste. ECOWAS will not just take a decision without consideration for some of these issues that you have raised.
So this position espoused by the Deputy Information Minister, that we are part of ECOWAS, so ECOWAS's position is our position. Is that to say that as a country, as sovereign as we are ultimately bound by ECOWAS protocols and we cannot take decisions on our own, taking other factors into consideration based on our own situation?
No, absolutely no. Our sovereignty is still intact. So when a president goes to commit to be part of an ECOWAS program, it is subject to parliamentary approval. And so let's go to Article 75. That's what our Constitution says. The president by himself cannot go and enter into any international treaty, agreement, blah, 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 without parliamentary approval. So that is what we have to go by. If our parliamentarians don't agree, no, the president can't go ahead. So Article 75 says, 1, the president may execute or cause to be executed treaties, agreements, or conventions in the name of Ghana. Excuse me. A treaty, agreement, or convention executed by or under the authority of the president shall be subject to ratification by A, Act of Parliament, or B, a resolution of Parliament supported by the votes of more than half of all the members of Parliament. So the president can, yes, enter into it. There is the Vienna Convention on International Treaties that also comes in, all right? But it's recognized and it's accepted. So we have what we call, Ghana as a nation, we have what we call a dualist state. So when we say dualist or dualism, your president goes, he can sign international treaties, but for those treaties to be binding on the country, he has to come and seek the approval of the internal parliament. So once that is not done, no, we are not bound. That's why I say if you go into the Vienna Convention, there's also a provision that, but don't use, don't do self-seeking, that because you've signed and then you don't use diligent efforts to get internal ratification so that you can run away. Yes, that's what it's saying. It says that, yes, when you sign, you are bound to a certain extent, so be diligent to get internal. Yes, so be diligent. Come and convince our representatives. If you are not able to convince them, sorry, it won't be binding. It won't be. So this ECOWAS, Ghana is committed, Ghana, it's not legal. Until Parliament approves it, it's not legal. Our troops will not leave here. You see, even the Presbyterian Church is stepped in, and other churches, right? The Christian Council. Yes, that's it. Look, listen, President Kufuor, you have to stop. Honorable Fatima, please, you guys don't do that. Don't do that. We're a country of laws. Come to Parliament. If Parliament agrees, sure, By the time you get to Parliament, we will also marshal forces and go and convince our parliamentarians not to agree. We are not going to any war. And nobody is glamorizing any coup d'etat. I understand, Honorable, you may prove it. I understand Ghana is committed some 5 million to the ECOWAS Peace Fund. We are not in support to. That's what I'm hearing. We are hungry. We are very, very, very hungry. People haven't eaten. People haven't bought medications. People are dying in the hospitals. People are dying. You can't take our money to go and give ECOWAS for any this restoration of constitutional order there. No, please do due process. You come to Parliament. When you get there, let our parliamentarians debate, and then we'll see where the chips will fall. But please, no, that 5 million we are hearing, we need a clarification on it. Has Ghana sent 5 million to the ECOWAS Peace Fund? Has Ghana committed 5 million? On what basis? When you haven't even printed textbooks, schools, 4 years, there's this program, the new textbooks. This is the 4th year, right? We've done only 5 textbooks, and even out of the 5 textbooks, a lot of the children don't have textbooks. You have 3 children using 1 textbook. What kind of system is this? And we are going to support a coup, restoration of a democracy in, what do you call it, Niger? No. Yes, let's not also preach fear that if Ghana doesn't go there, our borders, they will come in. So, Fatima, just as you said, people are glamorizing coup d'etats. You're also preaching fear by saying that if we don't go, we are in danger, the people will come here. I don't think that's how it works. We also have our security system here. It may not be the best, but I also know that there are some programs where the U.S. has been helping us. And look, let's not underestimate it. When the U.S. has the biggest, embassy in Ghana here, it has some significance, and there are other things. It's not everything we say on air. So we have some help. Please, let's not rush. It's not logic that once Niger, and we are even saying that we have citizens in Niger, so there's even the first line that our citizens are in danger if we go to support. Then number 2, these security matters. Ghana is entering into various agreements with the U.S. They've been helping us, so we'll get help. So it's not automatic that anything happens, there will just be a spillover and then Ghana kaput. No. Just remember that the size of the embassy in Ghana, the biggest, it has certain security implications that we have some support. It's not everything we'll discuss on.
Indeed, lawyer, I'm not taking it away from. I'm going to come back to you, but you asked the question. So, Fatima, has Ghana committed the 5 million cedis? Is it dollars? I beg your pardon. $5 million to the ECOWAS Peace Fund.
Not that I am aware of, but since you've mentioned, I will look at it and get back to you. But let me let him finish. I have a few. I see.
So you are not aware of whether or not we've committed $5 million. You can't say for now.
Not that I am aware of, but I will find out and revert.
So, but if Ghana is going to commit troops, where is the money going to be taken from, since appropriation has not been made for it in this fiscal year?
You played some voices earlier and also took Honorable Agaga's submission where they mentioned the contingency vote. I am saying that Ghana can only contribute to what Ghana has. If it is 1 cedi, that is what Ghana will give.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not talking about even the amounts now. I'm talking about the source of the money. Because appropriation has not been made. So if, for instance, you decide that you're going to commit troops, where are you going to get the money? Why are you taking the money to fund it?
But I am saying that I'm just mentioning to you that some suggested that the contingency vote. So if the government is able to get something from that, why not? But the point I'm making is that we will give what we have. If it means it has to come from the contingency vote, if it means we have to come to Parliament, whatever it takes. I'm not even saying that Ghana is against, the government is against ratification as a dualist state. I never mentioned that. Okay. What I was asking was from Honorable Agaga, since he was part of the Security and Defense Committee and a member of Parliament through the period that I mentioned, whether during those moments the executive came to Parliament for ratification. And he mentioned that in 2017, they didn't come to Parliament for ratification. But I am very much aware that we there should be ratification. But when I asked the Honorable MP, he says he's still researching and looking for some documents. And because I am not in Parliament and I haven't seen that document myself, I don't want to say that, okay, at this one it was ratified and this one government doesn't.
Okay.
But of course, the defense minister is also a member of Parliament, so he knows the government's obligation when it comes to parliamentary ratification, and I believe the right thing will be done.
James Agaga, so there was a specific reference to a statement that you had made earlier about the ratification of these protocols. And that's what Fatima was talking about. Briefly, and then I'll go to...
Alfred, you see, in 2016, when Ghana, under the leadership of President Mahama, took part in ECOWAS decision to go to the Gambia, that was getting towards the latter part of 2016. Unfortunately for us, we lost power. The actual deployment happened after we had lost power, which is why when we started speaking out, you know, and giving indication that there was the need for the deployment to have been approved by Parliament, the minister, this same minister, Honorable Nituwul, then came to Parliament and read a statement in relation to that same matter. Then we debated his statement and admonished him never to commit us to a war in the future without recourse to Parliament. So, so these are the facts. We were not in charge.
Right. Okay.
At the time the deployment happened. So, and like Lawyer Pebu rightly pointed out, ratification or, if you like, consent may have been given at the executive level when we were in power. But that did not absolve us from further responsibility of bringing the matter before Parliament, you know, for ratification. There are two levels of ratification here. We need to take that into account.
Okay, it's important that you make that distinction. Kenal, first of all, I lost you briefly, but he's back. Kenal, so there is that concern about the funding, which in time past, when we've spoken, you have raised some serious concerns about that. How much is going to cost ECOWAS or us as a country if we are committing this standby force to Niger? You've heard what the Deputy Information Minister is saying, plus the concerns of parliamentary approval. You have been in the thick of things, conflict on the continent. How serious is this cost element in all this conversation that we're having? Kenal.
All right, Alfred, good morning once again. And let me extend same to my learned friends and the Honorable on your side. And there are very many fundamental issues around this intervention. And nobody must attempt to deflect the discourse away from those fundamentals. So I'll come to the funding issue. But before I do, you see, the statement by Dr. Abdul Fattah Musa that we are ready. We are not ready. Where is the force commander? There's no force commander. There's no force commander. Of course, I know the processes that after this meeting, they will recommend a short list of, you know, officers. And then the Mediation and Security Council and the Mediation and Security Council now is conflated. It should have been a body of 9 out of the 15. From inception, all 15 said no. So that all 15 of us at all times will constitute the Mediation and Security Council, and then will also be the authority. You see where some of these inconsistencies are. There are many fundamental political dynamics that I cannot talk about now, you know. But there's no force commander. It's not been announced. And if it's not been announced, there is no leader for any intervention. So the question that we are ready is debatable because we have not exhausted the internal mechanisms for now launching the operation. That's one point that we need to bear in mind. The other fundamental issue is that, Alfred, war is an immoral activity of man because you are going to kill. And this intervention is the closest that you can have to war. We are going to kill human beings. So therefore, in law, we say that the cause for that war must be just. And I'm glad that we have a lawyer with you, jus bello or us bello or whatever they call it, just cause. My argument is that the cause for this intervention is not just. So when Dr. Abdul Fattah Musa is saying that we went to Gambia or the Gambia 2017 and nobody raised any noise, be that as it may. In that 2017, in Benin, there was an unconstitutional change of our accession to power that was evolving by the sitting president. That was the same 2017. ECOWAS didn't say anything. Did we hear ECOWAS talk about the change of the Beninois constitution? We didn't hear that. Come forward 3 years later, or 4 years later, in Cote d'Ivoire, the sitting president also changed this constitution. Come several years later, in Senegal, the president attempted to change the constitution. So the unconstitutional change of government or the zero tolerance for accession to power via unconstitutional means is broad, is either civilian or military. So the question is, why is ECOWAS, being so rattled by this coup in Niger? We need to find the answers. Now, on the fundamental question let me conclude that if you have these unconstitutional leaders, because Togo has signaled ECOWAS that it's not in favor, you see it. So now the numbers have even dwindled. The Lusophones, Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, have categorically said they are not part of it. They're not going to be part of it. Then we have the 4 who are under sanction. Then you have Togo, who is saying that I don't support this idea, although it's not come out, So the numbers have dwindled. But out of the remaining numbers, you have 4 who are not Democrats, or 3 who are not Democrats: Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and Benin. Now, these ones who have already violated the ECOWAS constitution cannot be part of any council that takes the decision to go and restore democracy in Niger. And therefore, for Ghana, the cause is not just, because he who comes to court with equity or for equity or whatever must have
come
clean
with
hands.
clean hands, indeed.
And yes, 3 of the leaders don't have clean hands. So Ghana must think twice before it puts its foot into this kind of, or its finger into this kind of abreuas food and so on and so forth. For the funding mechanism, what I know, we are talking about the ECOWAS standby force. So ECOWAS established a peace fund, and the peace fund is to be capitalized from taxes or levies on imports and exports within member states. I'm not an economist, but my understanding is that from our books every year, member states or Ghana will determine that exports and imports amounted to so much. So per the ECOWAS arrangement, I think it's 0.5 or whatever it is. This is the 0.5. But the 0.5 is not automatic. I believe that there will be other processes of channeling the 0.5 of that levy to ECOWAS. Now, if the 5 million purportedly paid to the ECOWAS is part of this import-export levy, that's fine. But if it is additional, then we need to raise questions. Indeed, I don't believe that even all member states of ECOWAS have paid up. At all times within the African Union and ECOWAS, there are people who don't pay. They can't pay. You see what I mean? So given our current circumstances, these economic exigencies, does it make sense to send that money to go and fight a war? Now, when you are in your house, and I want to be a bit, indigenous here, because village wisdom is more than the wisdom that we obtain through universities. My due respect to Professor Jampo, you can go to school and have the highest degree. If you don't have village wisdom, I think you are missing a lot.
A great deal.
Yeah, a great deal life.
You see,
so
but,
if you can't, you can't feed your people. What do you call this arrangement? Free feeding or free food or whatever is in arrears. Get Fund has been collateralized. ESLA has been collateralized. The Bank of Ghana is in debt. Does it make sense? Where is the priority? You see what I mean? So this democracy and this thing that you've been given the authority doesn't mean that you take decisions that largely may not be popular with the population. One of your sister stations, I know we're going to come back to the nitty-gritty of the issues, but a sister station did a survey. Granted that it's not a scientific survey. 82% Ghanaians who were sampled said that they are not in favor, but they are against. You see what I mean? Because their stomachs are empty, their stomachs are zero. That is where the emphasis is. It's about national interest and national security. And in both of these domains, that citizen who is a Ghanaian is at the center. If that citizen is not faring well, then the national interest is also not faring well. So don't let us hide behind arguments and so on and say that, well, look, I've read these ECOWAS protocols, right? The treaty, the protocols, which includes the 1999 mechanism, the what we call the ECPA, ECOWAS Conflict Prevention Framework 2000. Alfred, anybody who thinks I'm telling lies must go and read these documents. Intervention is not mentioned. You find peace building, you find enforcement of sanctions, you find preemptive deployment, like, what do you call it? Like Gambia. Gambia was a preemptive deployment.
Okay.
It was not an enforcement action. You see what I mean?
Yes. But
it's not mentioned anywhere because committing troops under international law is a serious enterprise.
And in fact, it is the seriousness of it that wanted to find out, for instance, how long it's going to take to, for instance, marshal if ECOWAS decides that they're going to deploy this standby force. The commissioner talks about they are battle ready, they are there. But you dispute that particular position and the element of cost. How much is it going to impact on the books of the member countries? Yes.
We are talking about democracy, right? So sometimes we learn from those who are practicing democracy elsewhere. If America had been us and ECOWAS had been NATO, by this time, the Congress of the United States would have been asking its president to bring the arrangements to the Congress. They would want to know how much it is going to cost America before they grant the congressional approval for the appropriation of that budget. The same must apply here. I'm not a politician, I'm not a political scientist like Professor Jampo, but my village wisdom tells me that you cannot have an armed forces per your constitution established solely or primarily for the maintenance of your territorial integrity and safeguarding of your sovereignty. And then you want to take those armed forces outside of your country, and you think that it is right and it is appropriate to take those troops without coming to parliament. Which democracy functions like that? Clinton and Obama and the sitting Trump and sitting Biden don't have that prerogative. So the government must go to parliament. That's what I'm suggesting. And indeed, if it is true that we have not domesticated this so-called 1999 mechanism or whatever protocol that we are basing on to go to Niger, that even makes the case more serious. You see what I mean? Because when I joined the army, I joined in order that I will protect, I'll help to protect, not me and others, will help to protect and defend the country. So when we are going, if it's peacekeeping, fine. If it is peace building, fine. If it is enforcement of sanctions, fine. These are specifically mentioned in all the ECOWAS documents that relate to the use of force. Intervention is not there. So what is happening is that ECOWAS is hiding behind this omnibus clause, which says another operations. Other operations cannot include suicide. You see what I mean? It cannot include suicidal operations. So if it is not mentioned, then we need to go through the steps. As far as timing is concerned, the ECOWAS standby force arrangement says that for this operation, and I think Ghanaians need to understand, this is a scenario 5 operation. A scenario 5 operation is a complex peace operation with spoilers. In other words, there is somebody out there who is going to fight you, who is going to oppose you. Now, for that operation, you need 90 days to prepare. There are good reasons why in 2003, and I was a member, the only African member, together with 2 UN, I think 3 UN, who sat in Addis Ababa and crafted the African Standby Force Protocol. Be that okay, I was then, learning the tricks. But I've been very, very conversant with the African Standby Force arrangements. There are good reasons why if you are going to go on such an operation, don't rush. Take time and get all your capabilities, all your assets together. Let the men and the women get to know themselves and know their leader, and raise their morale. Make sure that everything they need is going to be there. So you don't go and halfway, you get stuck. Okay. That is not where we are, in my mind. We are nowhere near that. And therefore, I see, and I find it very, very unfortunate, that some of the statements coming out are actually propagandists from the ECOWAS angle. And ECOWAS must not be playing propaganda. ECOWAS must be putting facts on the table for us as citizens of ECOWAS to digest. There's so much inconsistency, incoherence, and so on. I mean, how can we, in the middle of, this black ant, which, stings very sharply. You don't stand in that and then be picking the ants. You stand outside. Yes. We cannot at this stage be talking about, and I'm referring to the Vice President's speech yesterday at the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. Were we not in ECOWAS when since 2012 the Tuaregs rebelled and almost got close to Bamako? What we did was to sit in Accra and establish the Accra Initiative in 2017. Now, 6 years down the line, 2023, you are now seeing the reason why we must deploy forces to go and counter terrorism. If we had done that, because my study tells me that the whole tensions around management of the security of the countries under threat from terrorism is part of the coups. You see, so let's get serious. Governance is a serious issue. You see what I mean? Let's get serious. Let's have foresight. Don't let us act as if we are tin gods and we can do anything that we want. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen.
Okay. Colonel Festus Aboagye, thank you, but still stay with us. Fatima, if a decision is going to be taken, you are mindful that it definitely would have to get parliamentary approval, is it not?
Yes, I'm mindful of that.
Hello?
Where necessary, as mentioned, that if there is no ratification,
Fatima,
because,
I lost you from the beginning. Yes, you were saying.
Okay, please, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I mentioned that Honorable Agaga says he is not sure whether some of the protocols have already been domesticated. I don't have that information here. But since you have mentioned, I will find out whether there is any such ratification that has been done, or in this instance, the government has to go to Parliament. But of course, in committing to this ECOWAS protocol, government is aware of its supreme obligation to the Constitution and the people of Ghana. So I believe the right things will be done if the need arises at all for us to give that military support.
Okay, so you go to Parliament and get the people's representatives' approval or input into this, if you have to. That is if.
That is if, because as we speak now, I mentioned that we are all speaking based on speculation because we don't know whether there is some ratification done on some of the protocols already. So until I see that something of that sort is done, it is best to exercise restraints until you know for a fact that in this instance, we haven't domesticated our commitments under the protocol, and we are supposed to go to Parliament for ratification.
Okay, thank you. I think that is one other major concern that we all had, and John Magaga, so the Deputy Information has indicated, stated categorically that any decision that will be taken will be subjected to parliamentary approval. People, you raised that concern as well. So we've got it.
It's not negotiable. Article 75 is very clear. And the fact that, you see, the fact that maybe in times past something was done and there was no parliamentary ratification, it's no reason to say we can continue doing that. No. There are a number of Supreme Court decisions on that. They tell you that, look, even 500 years. So, I mean, and it's no secret that naturally when this government came in 2017, it had a lot of goodwill. So things were done. Sometimes we were not right, but we're just so happy that we are thrown out JM. You see, but now times are different. So please, 2017 is not the same as 2023. Now we are very angry, very, very hungry and angry. So there is no space for President Kufuor to attempt to commit troops or to give our money. So we are back to that $5 million we hear has been given to ECOWAS. We want it back. I mean, from what I'm hearing, $5 million cannot be conjured from air. It's probably true, because if the countries haven't committed money, on what basis is Dr. Mustafa saying they are ready? If we don't have money in the ECOWAS peace fund, on what basis will ECOWAS be saying that we are ready? Or it's just saber rattling, threatening. No, but if you just threaten on an empty coffers, you will soon be found out. So let's very critical at this stage. We need government's full response on this $5 million that's alleged to have been sent to the ECOWAS fund. We don't want our money going to any ECOWAS fund when we are very hungry. And so, in that respect, we'll call on Parliament. The parliamentarians, they're on break, right? Yes, they should sign. So the Constitution allows that a certain number can call for Parliament to be reconvened. We don't have to sit down 1/3, and the minority alone can do it, right? So Parliament should reconvene to put President Kufuor right. The country doesn't belong to him. He can't go forward without Parliament's approval. Because if we sit down with the way Dr. Mustafa is saying they are ready, next thing you know, then the troops will be gone. And it will look like, hey, we sat down on our hands and allowed it to happen. Meanwhile, in the meantime, I'm sure you saw all throughout the week, you've heard news coming from Burkina Faso, Mali, and the rest that they are going to support the regime in Niger. So that's going to be a full-blown war. Can you imagine? Yeah, you go to Ghana Web and the rest, you see that even some says they've already sent what? Burkina Faso have sent material support to Niamey amid a threat by the regional bloc, ECOWAS, to enter the country to remove the junta. Footage broadcast on the station late Friday, August 18, showed a number of fighter jets. Can you imagine? Fighter jets landing on a facility in Niamey, etc. So, no, please, we don't want this. I think the president should come and address the nation. We shouldn't allow this thing to fester with rumors and the rest. That's how the First World War started.
And I wish we get the opportunity to clarify.
Yes. That what clarity exactly, Fatima, are you talking about?
Yes, you said I made an emphatic statement that we will be going to Parliament for ratification, but that is not what I said.
Okay, so I asked the question.
There's no negotiation. We can't send any troops
that if you're going to take any decision, you are mindful of the fact that you would have to go to Parliament to get a ratification or approval, and you said yes. So
no, I said that in honoring our obligations under the ECOWAS protocol, government will make sure the supreme interests of the Ghanaian citizens are taken into consideration. And I've also mentioned to you that as we speak, you are aware that I'm not a minister at the Defense Ministry. So, of course, it is not all the information that is available to me as to whether in this particular instance there hasn't been any domestication of the protocols that we are talking about. So it is also important for me to revert after speaking to the minister whether some of those actions have been taken, and if it has not been taken, their commitment under Article 75 of the Constitution. Because ultimately, we are bound to act in accordance with the Constitution. But because we don't have that information, what if we go there and they say, tomorrow the minister says, oh, we have domesticated these protocols. That is why in previous times we didn't have to go to Parliament. That will be a contradiction in itself. So I will have to defer to the superior position of the Defense Ministry after this show and seek answers and bring it back to you. But I cannot speak when I don't have those specific facts and stand here and say on authority emphatically that government is going to Parliament for any ratification.
Well, but I am saying to you that your earlier answer to my question when I asked was that yes, you were going to, unless we all didn't hear you right. I asked a specific question.
Unless I also didn't understand your question, but I have clarified what exactly I wanted to say. So I believe it should take precedence over what you thought I said.
But it is the position of the law, so I don't think it's negotiable, really, that whether or not you're going to go to Parliament or otherwise. It is what is required. It is what has to be done. So it's not as though it is something that you choose to do or otherwise. Fatima.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Alfred, I can hear you. But of course, if I don't have all that information, I cannot speak emphatically on behalf of ECOWAS. So it is only proper that I clarify that position and not give the impression that I already know that they are going to Parliament. No.
Let me acknowledge the presence of the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security. Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa is also joining us on Zoom. Yes, Ambassador, good morning. Welcome.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly. If you can kindly...
Yeah, I am happy, to join. But unfortunately, I'll have to leave in about, if I, get my time right, in about 20 minutes or so.
Okay, that's fine. But how far is the ECOWAS intending to go with respect to engaging in a diplomatic channel to get this Niger situation resolved, instead of sounding, as many security analysts have seen, the posture appears to be in favor of the military intervention being the first resort, that even though you're still talking about diplomacy, you still have your eyes on the military intervention?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for having me. Listen, it is you, the media, who are actually, beating the drums of war, right? Right from the beginning of this crisis, ECOWAS has always said we are going to exhaust all our tools, the array of tools that we have. Okay. We condemn the coup. We ask for the release of President Mohamed Bazoum and his family. We ask the junta, CNSP, to restore constitutional order. All that has been on deaf ears, right? We deployed 2 high-level missions to the country. The first one, led by the former head of state of Nigeria, General Abdul Salam Abubakar, and the Sultan of Sokoto, they were confined to the airport, and they had to come back without seeing the leader of the junta, Abdurrahman Chiani. Then we were on the way to the airport, an ECOWAS AU UN mission on the same mediation effort, and then they told us they were not ready to receive us. Okay, so that is it. I mean, sanctions have also been applied to the country, which is also the middle way, coercive diplomacy, if you will call it that way, but not using the military option. And meanwhile, we have to demonstrate credible force, that we can project credible force to enforce ECOWAS protocols that the junta has violated. You know, Niger is signatory to them, the Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance of 2001, which they have violated. So, no, if you would allow me to finish. All these things are there, and we are still asking them to give peace a chance by opening up the diplomatic channel. We are not the one shutting the door on them. It is rather they shutting the door on us. Finally, they tell us they are receiving the mission today, and we have taken up their offer. So there will be a mission into the country today, that is for sure. That will be the opening gambit. We will see how the discussions unfold. The thing is that if we realize that the discussions are going nowhere, I can assure you that we are not going to engage in endless dialogue. The devil of the dialogue of the deaf, that we don't hear each other. We don't try to listen to each other and know exactly where compromises can be made. If we cannot make it, then the very last option will be the military one. And I'm not giving you any time frame for the application of that last, ultimatum, and then the deployment of the force. So, so that is the trend that we are following. It is the sequencing of our interventions in, in Niger, and we are going to follow them through.
I see. But why do you blame the media when yourself, 2 days ago, you had indicated that, one, your efforts to even, and you just mentioned it, get the attention or engagement, have a meeting with the junta, hasn't been fruitful. They have been, in your words, been shutting the door in your face, and that you are going to, by all means possible, restore democracy in Niger, and that you are not going in there to go and beg. If you make this statement, you don't blame the media when you have already indicated that your standby force is ready and ready to be activated. How then do you blame the media for questioning you for your own position that you have consistently stated? Why is the media at fault?
Listen, it is because the planning meetings of the Committee of Chiefs of Defense Staff, that is what has captured the headlines. Okay, people, and the media itself de-emphasizes the peaceful option. The media, because that does not sell. What sells is the fact that ECOWAS troops are marching in. So the emphasis is on that. If you have any, you must know about military processes, right? We cannot just sit there and say that we may use force at some point if nothing else works. And then we'll sit down with our planning. So what ECOWAS has been doing is planning towards an eventuality which may or may not occur. Those are the things. But all the emphasis has been on the planning mission, and also the statements of the heads of state and spokespeople for ECOWAS, who time and again have told the media that the military option is not our preferred option, and that we are going to exhaust all peaceful means. So all that is happening is planning, is preparation, so that if what the push comes to shove, the ECOWAS standby force is not found wanting, so that we are ready to go. It doesn't mean we are going to deploy tomorrow. You see, but the thing is that all media attention and all discussions on social media has emphasized the military option to the detriment of all the options that have been put on the table since the beginning of the crisis in Niger. That is the difference.
But is there any engagement that's ongoing between the ECOWAS delegation and the junta that we are not aware of? Have you met them? Have you had any dialogue?
There have been back-channel communication with them. And then, in fact, we just spoke to the newly appointed Prime Minister, Mr. Zain, just not long ago, which opened the door, for this mission that is being deployed today. So there have been contacts. There have also been track 2 interventions, not directly by ECOWAS, but also linked to ECOWAS, including the visit of the ulamas, the mullahs into the country, where they declared that they were ready for talks, but they had not actually contacted us directly and said the mission should come. So there have been so many contacts that we've had directly and indirectly. And it is the last one, the discussion that we had with the Prime Minister, just about 2 days ago, that opened the door to this visit. So we are taking them by their word. The mission will deploy, and then we'll see what the reaction would be.
Have you considered the cost? I'm not talking about the financial cost only, but the social cost of your military intervention. Already, we have been engaging the Ghanaian community there. The leadership is worried that if you decide to intervene with the military in Niger, they will be targets for attacks. And not just the Ghanaians, but the Nigerians, the Senegalese, and other African nationals in Niger. That's their fear. Have you considered that?
In the planning of this mission, all those factors have been taken into account. We know we are talking about the Ghanaian citizens who are there, the other nationals of West Africa. There are about 700,000 Nigerian citizens, refugees in Niger. We are very much aware of that. And we have also taken into account the possibility of reverse refugee flows out of the country and then all that. But let me assure you, in planning, we are not going to war against Niger, right? That is very important to, it's a very big difference. We are not going to war against Niger. We are going to war against the CNSP junta. The CNSP junta is the one, and we are making that very clear to the populations. And I can assure you from our intelligence that the CNSP appears to be a monolith. It seems to be to have consolidated its power or anything like that. It's far from the truth, and that there is opposition internally to the CNSP.
But,
so I'm not going to go into details, right?
Yes, but Commissioner, you cannot be having the CNSP as your target and not also take into consideration how your attacks would impact on the larger population. I mean, and the implications that it would have for the country as a whole and the sub-region. So your target, yes, is the CNSP, but they are not alone in this.
Yes, but they also, if they have their population at heart, they should take up our offer of the peaceful means to resolve this crisis. But when it comes to the implementation of the military option, if it happens, it is going to be surgical, it is going to be targeted. And I can assure you that all plans are afoot to make sure that the collateral impact of any intervention is going to be as minimal as possible. That is being taken into account. I cannot guarantee 100% that, probably this, when you are going into an operation like this, there are so many things you have control over, other that you do not. But what I am saying is that we have taken all this into consideration, and we are telling them that the peaceful option is still there. We want, peaceful pathways, to the restoration of constitutional order in the country. So if the junta has its population and the population of West Africans at heart, I think it will take up that offer so that we do not cross that Rubicon where we have to use military force. I mean, that is the position of ECOWAS.
I see. But for you as a bloc, have you considered the causative factors in this? And instead of focusing on the outcome, the symptoms of this problem, as a regional leadership, the bloc, the attempts by some of the leaders who are engaged in, quote unquote, trying to restore democracy in Niger, they themselves being engaged in undemocratic acts of trying to change their constitution to extend their tenure in office and then also intervene in other means. For you as ECOWAS, you did not intervene in those instances. Haven't you failed as a leadership?
Yes. No, thank you. Yes, first let me state this. Administrations of any entity is a continuum. So we take the blame for mistakes of the past, right? What I am telling you is that there is a new administration at the level of the commission and also at the chair of authority, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu of Nigeria. We assumed office just about a year ago. All these things that you are talking about took place some time back, right? We've seen the situation in, for example, Guinea, that triggered the coup d'etat against them. That is about the adopting a new constitution without the consent of the majority of the population by trying to extend their power. All that has happened in the past. We are saying that what is happening in Niger, that coup, we have to stop that contagion. We are drawing a line in the sand. The Niger coup is one coup too many. There is a new administration. The fact that we made mistakes in the past does not mean that we should continue making those mistakes. And let me tell you one thing. Recently, the president of Senegal, Macky Sall, publicly renounced his original intention to go for a third term. I don't think you know what went into it. Back channel pressure, and then all that for him to renounce the third term agenda. You see, if it had been probably in the past, he could have gone away with it. And already, when we heard that the president of Gambia, President Adama Barrow, said that, he intends, possibly to run for a third term at the last but one summit, the ordinary summit of ECOWAS in Guinea-Bissau. ECOWAS put him on guard that we've heard what he has said, even though the elections are far away, we are putting him on guard that we have taken note of his statement. So if our population should see differences that are emerging.
I see. But
yes.
Ambassador, you have said that you take the blame for the mistakes of the past. But why are you so quick to act when there's an overthrow of government with guns and so slow or even silent or don't act at all when governments are overthrown through the constitution?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, look, the ECOWAS protocol on democracy and good governance is very clear. It is zero tolerance for power obtained, that is by the military often, and maintained by sitting presidents who fiddle with their constitutions, instrumentalize the judiciary, weaponize them against oppositions and other things in order to stay on in power. That really is a contravention of the ECOWAS protocols. And I must admit that ECOWAS has not been very, very quick in condemning and stopping such practices in the past. It is not one-way traffic. ECOWAS went into the Gambia, to stop a similar thing when Yahya Jammeh in 2016 lost elections and wanted to cling on to power. We deployed the force. You see, so that question that earlier, when I joined, I was hearing what you were saying about Ghana not going to the parliament and others. I wonder whether Ghana went to the parliament when it was deploying troops to the Gambia in 2016. So once again, that has to be taken into account.
Ambassador,
yes.
I don't want, you may have limited knowledge about the local situation in Ghana. So you heard what was said, but there was some clarity given as to the Gambia situation. So maybe you missed that. So I will forgive you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'll forgive you.
That. And
but you see, I know you want to leave, but you see, at the heart.
No, I'm telling you one thing. Don't forget, I'm Ghanaian, and I follow what is happening in Ghana as well.
Okay, but then you would know that after the deployment, they came to Parliament. Just to put it on record. But then
After
finally, before you go, at the heart of these schools, not just the Niger one, these schools we are seeing, about 6 schools in the last 3 years in the sub-region alone. At the heart of it is a bad leadership that is going on in the continent. Is ECOWAS not concerned about addressing the cause of the problem instead of the symptoms that we see with the coups?
You see, ECOWAS does a lot of preventive work, structural prevention of crisis, but it does not capture the headlines. We do a lot when it comes to that in terms of the root causes, the structural causes of the crisis that we are seeing. We are doing a lot about that, including facilitating infrastructure development across our country. People do not talk about what ECOWAS has done, unique in the region, about free movement of people, about our, power pool for electricity, just to facilitate, developments in the country, providing assistance. Even the countries fighting terrorism, we are supporting them with humanitarian aid and also, with money for them even to acquire the necessary equipment in the counter-terrorism effort that they are making. All these factors, I'm just naming a few, they don't capture the headlines, right? And let me tell you, we are talking about bad governance deficits that are causing this. I just want you to have the profile of the coups that we have witnessed in the region. If you look at it, in 2 of them, and now the 3rd one, the number 1 reason the military gave was insecurity. And our conflict environment is defined by terrorism and violent extremism, right? That is not necessarily, bad governance is not necessarily a causal factor in the spread of terrorism in the region. It takes its source long ago, even from outside our region, right? So that is the reason, for example, in Niger, they are number 1 reason. In Mali, number 1 reason. In Burkina Faso, number 1 reason. But what I would want to ask is that whose primary responsibility is it to fight terrorism? Is it the civilian administrations or the military in these countries, whose primary responsibility is the protection of the defense of the territorial integrity of their countries? You see, so it is not all black and white. If you look at it, among all the coups that have occurred, the only one that did not cite insecurity as the number one factor was in Guinea. You know, the rest, insecurity, insecurity, insecurity. And so what has the military been doing in those countries? And is it when they become government, that they come into government, that they will resolve the the terrorism, problem? For example, in Niger today, we've seen an uptick in terrorist attacks. About 27 troops were killed, so many more injured. And for months, Niger never experienced such attacks on the military. And they have seized power.
Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, thank you for joining the conversation. Give us 20 minutes, but we've done 30 for the greater good, because it is important to hear from you and how far you are willing to employ diplomacy instead of the military option, which has been widely condemned.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you very much for having me. And I can assure you, we shall exhaust the diplomatic channels. I can assure you about that. But it takes two to tango, and we are watching to see the posture of the military as our mission goes in, to dialogue with them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, quick one. So,
Dr. Mustafa, you under the UN Charter, have you saw the consent of the Security Council? The use of force?
Listen, we will inform the Security Council at the appropriate time. I do not think that we have the intention to go and request Chapter 7 approval from the Security Council. We have consulted our lawyers, and it is not a requirement without which we cannot go. And the United Nations Secretariat have been supporting all measures that ECOWAS has been taking up till this point. Thank you.
Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Professor Ransford Jampo. It says ECOWAS hasn't been quick. It admits that they haven't been quick to condemn such instances in the past. They take the blame for the mistakes of the past and what we are seeing playing out in other countries, acknowledging the fact that there's that weakness in ECOWAS's approach, plus the issues relating to the bad leadership, which they say they are aware of, but they've been making some interventions, which we haven't seen the outcome as we speak. Prof.
You see, there are so many things I wanted to tell the man in the face, but you've just allowed him to go, and so I don't like talking behind the back of people.
He's listening and watching you now.
Well,
he's
so
on, actually.
I think that then let me say a few things. See, the idea of diplomacy is a complex thing, and it is something that is studied in school deliberately. Clearly, if you look at what he's saying, he's not a diplomat. And you see, the posture of the diplomat itself, matters in the conduct of diplomacy. The posture. Okay, if you look at the utterances of his utterances, and of course the utterances of many people who are speaking on this, it shows that they are weak in their appreciation of the dogmas of diplomacy. And I would urge them that they should go to the Legon Center for International Affairs and Diplomacy to be schooled. Because diplomacy is not just about talking. A diplomat knows what to do if you go and doors are shut at you. You don't start the journey of diplomacy by the issuance of threat. We are going to talk, but we will use all force. We are going to talk, but we'll go with the military. I mean, those kinds of things, they are annoying and they are offensive. And they infuriate whoever is listening to you. And so I think that he should tone down on the utterances and be sober. If he really is interested in occupying that position, is really interested in addressing the issue. But I have so many things to say about this, and then You made me sit here for over 1 hour. I've not said anything. So allow me to also have my...
Indeed. Just to state that he's espousing, Ambassador was espousing the ECOWAS's position, not even his personal position.
Well, the ECOWAS's position for now, for me, I mean, what is ECOWAS? Do they exist? ECOWAS? I mean, where is it? Look, let's be serious here, okay? Let's not get into this situation and all of a sudden people get the opportunity and they want to be making pronouncements on some of these issues. I don't know to what end. So please, let us look at, when I listened to Colonel Festus Abuaje, I was very okay, and I kept asking myself, is he a Ghanaian? Is he not somebody who is worth listening to? Why won't anybody want to listen to such a view that is being canvassed, by such, distinguished people, distinguished personality like him? And so I have a belief that if we don't want to listen to people like Colonel Festus Abuaje, then we may have a certain agenda that we may be pursuing, as a people. Very soon I'll get there. But generally, let me say that coups are bad. Coups cannot be rationalized in any way by anybody. Coups are bad. And sometimes I hear people talking about coups, and it appears, or not it appears, but those who talk about them are people who have not experienced the consequences of coups. And when you stand in a lecture hall to talk about the history of Ghanaian politics, and you talk about some of the human rights abuses that occurred when there were coups, students tend to be surprised. And clearly it tells you that they don't know our history. People do not know that a human being was tied by a rope to a peace-goer. Peace-goer used to be it's a vehicle. So while the peace-goer was speeding, the human being was rolling on the floor and the body was mutilated until he died. People do not know that soldiers at one point in time got into a church, started shooting, and a pregnant woman had a baby gushing out of the tummy. People don't know that Makola women were paraded on the streets naked and were stripped publicly. There are so many, if you want to know the kinds of things that happen during military interventions, go read my teacher's PhD, Professor Michael Quay's PhD thesis. He talks about the kind of human rights abuses that takes place when there is coup. And so coups cannot be rationalized, in any way. If you read Plato, he talks about the role of soldiers, and he says that soldiers have no business being part of the governance process. Theirs is to be soldiers. You should allow the philosopher king alone to govern. But unfortunately, in Africa, we don't have philosopher kings. If you listen to some of the utterances of our leaders and some of the utterances of those people who speak on behalf of the ECOWAS, that tends to rationalize the kinds of bad governance that we have. It tells you we don't have philosopher kings in Africa. And so sometimes coups do occur, even though we don't want it, it occurs. But when coups occur, we are supposed to respond to it in different ways in a manner that ensures that we are able to competently or adequately address it. In responding to coups, sometimes you may have to use military force. Sometimes you may have to use diplomacy. And when I talk about diplomacy, it's not the kinds of things that the ECOWAS people are doing. They just talk publicly in a manner that even infuriates the person you are going to be dialoguing with. They are not diplomats, and I've referred them. I said, Lesiat to Legon. They should go there and learn, because it is not a child's play.
They are using the other approach, eclectic.
It is not
diplomacy, a bit carrot and stick.
It is not a child's play. You see, you have to sit down and be schooled. Now, so there are two different situations. Let me talk about the Gambian situation and then compare it to the Niger situation. See, the Gambian situation is different. ECOWAS moved there with troops, but that situation is different from what we have now. In Gambia, listen to me carefully, there was unanimity that, in the world community, there was unanimity that Yahya Jammeh had to leave. That's number one. Africa, the world community, there was unanimity that Yahya Jammeh had to go. Number two, Yahya Jammeh himself, his soldiers were no longer loyal to him. And so the moment we decided to send troops, he fled. Now, that is not the same situation in which we find ourselves in Niger. In Niger, number one, there is no unanimity as to the deployment of military force, even among the ECOWAS countries. In the world community, there is no unanimity. That is number one. Number two, the forces, the military junta, they have a lot of support from the people. Number three, the military junta, they are willing to fight. Number four, Russia is willing to fight on the side of the military junta. Number six, Americans and France, they are willing to fight against the military junta. You see what I'm talking about? So you see that, well, the superpowers taking sides in this. Burkina Faso has clearly indicated that an attack, a military attack on Niger will be interpreted as a military attack on them. Nigeria, that would have contributed most of our troops, has gone to parliament, and their parliament is saying that they do not want any military troops to be deployed. And so that is going to mean that it is going to affect the number of troops that can be deployed there. So look at all these things. If we don't take care, and if we don't resort to diplomacy, we are going to be caught in a crossfire. And people's fathers, people's husbands, people's uncles are going to be murdered. Because you see, our strengths would pale in comparison with the strength of, if you like, Russia. Okay, yes, Americans and France, they will come in to also fight. But the point is that if you don't take care, we will make ourselves a prey to attacks. Okay, and so I'm saying that we don't like coups. And in this particular situation, I think that you need competent and professional diplomats to lead the charge of diplomacy, so that a competent and qualified diplomat knows that, look, it is not easy under this particular circumstance. You go and then they shut the door at you. You go, they shut the door at you. A competent diplomats know what to do to surmount this kind of situation. You don't come publicly to say that, well, we are going to continue, but we will not continue in perpetuity. There are certain things you don't even say them. You keep it to yourself. But the moment you begin to talk about some of these things publicly, you infuriate those people you are going to be dialoguing with. And so it makes them overly intransigent. I'm aware that, you see, many African leaders who have not governed well are the ones who are touting the need for them to quickly send troops, send troops as a way of preventing the idea of coups from festering. Because people fear that if it happens there, it may happen here. I'm telling them that the antidote to coups is not about sending military troops to other countries. The antidote to coups is about good governance. Govern well, and you have nothing to fear. But if you don't govern well, and you think that, well, I will not govern well, but I want to contribute troops to help countries that have experienced military coup, then I'm telling you that you will be laughing at the wrong side of your mouth one day, because the people will not listen. The antidote to coups is not about quickly sending military troops without even thinking about the consequences. The antidote to coups, if you have nothing to fear, is to govern well. Good governance is the antidote to coups. But if you supervise and create what Michael Quay will refer to as a praetorian situation, then you keep being afraid of coups. We don't support coups. I don't support coups. But I'm saying that when it occurs, we must use, like Dr. Colonel Festus Abuaje said, we must use sometimes commonsensical approach to handling some of these things. You don't have the strength. You don't have what it takes. I'm not even talking about funding. You don't have the military might to go and be caught in that crossfire between Russia and America.
Right.
They are going to. So if we want to fight, if we have to take military resort to deployment of military troops, let those who have the might, let those who have the strength, let them do it. But we don't want our people to go and be massacred.
Professor Ransford Jampo is a professor of political science. Stay with us. We are going to take concluding thoughts on this matter right after this quick break. It's a quick break, so don't go away. Fatima Abubakar, a deputy information minister, is still with us, and my guest in studio as well. We'll be back shortly after this quick break here on Key Points. Stay with us. We're live on 3FM 92.7 as well.
And I'm Mantibi, and in my baby, and in my baby. Woman saw baby came one. Woman saw Bowie on your bar or set or bow for.
We're going to scrutinize every bachelor that comes on this show. Your money is our money, my money is my money.
Did you get it?
Yes.
I'm here to win the husband material. My mom tells me I'm the best man anyone can have because she personally prepared me for that.
Equally, you're also very neat in the kitchen.
So rare to see a man that can cook.
Food is love. Simple.
Is he hot?
He's hot. If I feel insecure about your female friends and I tell you not to hang out with them anymore, are you going to do it or you're not going to do it?
This marriage will not happen.
Feel adrift as you transition into a new stage of your life. The future seems like a blank space until you discover the passion within. The canvas of the future is yours to paint. Welcome to a world of opportunities. Heritage Christian College, offering world-class university education, training compassionate entrepreneurial leaders.
Rasta. Rasta, Rasta. What does Rasta really mean to the people? In today's episode of Rasta Vibration, this is what we're looking at. Rasta, what does it mean to you?
To me, Rasta means real.
Rasta to me means artistic. Rasta to me means study. Rasta to me means trailblazing.
That's what people like you and I do every day.
What?
But where you there?
I do. Listen, Rasta, I have a bone to pick with you. Some of the things that you say on air, though, are morally, ethically, and politically.
Kids are watching.
Sit
down, my youth.
Respect. Rasta means the motherland, Africa.
Real artistic, sporty, trailblazing African choco malt drink.
This advert is FDA approved.
She was just trying to take care of her diet and her health in general from a UK size 22. She started off by eating well, sharing it on social media personally, and then later on it moved on to blow into the biggest restaurant in Ghana right now. You know that restaurant, I'm talking Nyonyo Catering Services.
I told Farouk, I want to own a restaurant, and we all laughed it off. I didn't know that words are powerful. Later on in life, I own a restaurant. For me, my food style or my healthy eating habits is balancing.
Me, if it must be done, it must be done well.
I'm all for balance.
Okay, balance.
All right,
baby,
I
balance,
cannot come
baby.
and die.
It's Chichi Yakubu is our guest right here on Today's Woman for this week. Don't forget, it's 3 p.m. on Saturday right here at TV3 with me, Cookie.
Today's Woman with Cookie T shows Saturdays at 3 p.m. on TV3. Brought to you by Latex Foam. Vlisco.
Welcome back. This is Key Point here on TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com here on Key Point. Talk about the key issues that are of concern to you, the Ghanaian people. And together with the guests, we go straight to the point in the interest of the nation. Still with us is Fatima Abubakar, is a Deputy Information Minister. Martin Pebo is with us in studio, James Agaga, and Professor Ransford Jampo. You also had the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa, joining us at a point in the conversation. But Mr. James Agaga, that point about the United Nations, as it were, approval or notifying the UN about whatever decision ECOWAS will take. The Ambassador Abdel Fattah Musa said they don't necessarily have to do so. Is that consistent with the position of the law?
Look, I think the UN Charter is very clear. It's very clear. In the event that force must be applied legally, the only body mandated to give authorization is the UN Security Council. Anything short of that would amount to a violation of international law. That is the position right now under international law. You see, in my preliminary remarks, I made the point that the arrangement whereby regional bodies such as ECOWAS is allowed